All right, I know everybody's tired, so let's begin with this. Yes, I know, I move a lot. You're gonna get used to this. Can you bring the audio up a little bit for me? I am Mexican, as you can tell, and Eduardo Galeano is one of my biggest inspirations. The fact that this phrase is all about how people communicate. The idea that I am not putting a light, I am not using that element, I'm not using that part of the technology just to enable something. As I tell people, if you want pretty, I am in front of a house. I use this to tell stories. For me, the technology is a character. The technology is an element that exists. It is not the main actor. And technology should never be the main actor, but it should be seen as a support element. The same way that you think about music. The same way that you think about how your actor needs to do. The same way that you think about the costumes. All these little elements are important. So when you think about the way that you're going to render something, the engine that you're going to use, the graphics card that you're going to use, all that is the same way that we're developing this tiny little character that will support the story in a completely different way. I am the founder and artist at Satore Studio, and more than likely you have never seen what we do, so that's what we do. Oh, no. Forget it. So, this is Cosmos Within Us. And this is, I have 15 minutes, so it's quick. I wrote Cosmos in 2017. I started writing Cosmos in 2017. And the idea was, I was seeing what was happening in VR. And I could see that me, as someone who works with performance, was not being integrated in the way that I wanted it to be. So I thought, why don't I write a story about a 60-year-old man who's suffering from Alzheimer's disease? And I take you through a journey of what is happening in his life. But I'm not going to do it in the most comfortable way. I'm going to look at this as 15 different scenes, and every single scene is going to have a completely different way of looking at it, because we're going through the memories of somebody. So I want to understand, how do you use drawing inside a piece? How do you combine that drawing inside a 3D world? What is it when you start playing with size? What happens when your faces are huge, or when you become so tiny? What happens when you're the biggest thing in the world and you can be looking for your sister? This is what I wanted to play with. I wanted to understand how I could use all this 16:9 and 4:3 and all this other content that's being created. And is there a way that I can make you think about the memories that this man had? Can I create an entire relationship between a brother and a sister within 10 minutes? And so in order to do that, we casted a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and then a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I shot them every 3 months for 2 days to create true memories between them. So they had a real relationship between being a brother and a sister. I wanted to understand the idea of putting a play within a play, in the same way that Almodovar does it in his movies. And how do you do that? How do you play in 360 and try to play with these elements of things moving around? Can I green screen something on top of that? Can I play with elements that are having a bit of a surrealistic space? And I did. You know, when the baby first comes out, it looks like a chicken, and then it becomes this 15-pound piece of meat, and then it becomes bologna. And it was this idea of the surreality. Can you be surreal in VR? Can you be different? There's no need to be literal. Can we play with it? Everyone says that Cosmos was 15 pieces in one, because we used every single technology under the earth. Every single piece, every single part of it never matched another one. Poor Liam here spent 6 months trying to make that flower decay in the way that I wanted it. I kid you not. At the end of it, he ended up taking that, and we gave that to Unreal, and now it's something that you can just put in the plugin, and now you can do it. But what makes it amazing, what makes it very difficult, is that we have one interactor. We call it interactor, the person who is in the headset, because they interact with our space. But our musicians are live. And I conduct the piece live. Our visuals are run in real time. We have a sound engineer and a 11.2 surround sound system. Our interactor has open headphones, so I can do something in the immersive layer. The environment comes into one ear, goes to another, and then goes that way. It means that I can control the pace of it. I am looking at the interactor and understanding, how is it that I need to make things happen? My voiceover is live, so I'm controlling him like a first violin. And I'm going, hold on, come here, stop. And the whole time I'm just making sure that the person who's in the middle is getting the best experience possible. And we called ourselves Sound and Vision. But then we have 2 dancers who we call the Shadow Men. And they're in charge of all the haptic elements that happen. And so all of a sudden, you get smells, you get touched. There's nothing more beautiful in my life that I've seen when your grandmother comes out and offers you a juice box and you stick your hand out and there's a juice box and you've been told your entire life that something that is on the screen cannot be touched. And then she comes and gives you cookies. And you're having a cookie and you're having a juice and you realize the only time you ever do that is when you're 4 years old. And we're going back to your brain and we're understanding and we're actually reshaping your brain. And at that moment we give you a bracelet. A bracelet that was made by my people, and indigenous people, artisans, taking the artwork to the rest of the world. This is what makes Cosmos amazing. When we first did Cosmos, we did it in Venice. We had what we called, because here's the biggest question I can see everybody going. So you just counted about 14 people for one person. I know. So what we ended up doing is we had a thing that we used to call behind the scenes and eventually became the audience. So in Venice, we had 4 people. In London, we had 10. In Amsterdam, at the Eye, we had 115. When we got to New York, you had 150. And they could see what he's seeing because they could see it on the screen. And then every single person in that room also has headphones. So they can hear what he's hearing, and they can see what he's seeing, but they can also see how we're making the piece in real time. By the time we get to Lisbon, we had 350 people in the audience. So that's how we made the math work. That's how the piece can happen. Because 350 people are willing to pay a ticket to come and see us perform. This is what Bob was feeling at the time. He's getting all the wind and the smell, and he can see the rocks, and he can see the forest, and he's completely engaged on what is happening around him. And this is Cosmos. Supposed to take it out, and then pandemic happened, and we all know what happened in that. But when I was developing this, I decided that I needed to give a name to this thing that I was making. And I decided to call it performative art. A performance that happens in different realities. Because we had our interactor in one reality, and then we had our audience in a second reality. The piece is the same, and we're not changing anything, but the way that our audience is experiencing it changes based on the reality in which they're watching it. And so after Cosmos, I started thinking, you know, Cosmos, I had a linear story, I can do this, I can do that. But what if I could break all the rules that are potentially available to me? And so, between 2013 to 2015, I woke up every single day at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would write whatever came to my head. And I would write it down, note it, and then throughout the day, I'll be editing those things, and by the end of the day, I will take those phrases and I'll put them at the end of the week, and then on Sundays, I will edit those ones, and I will put those at the end of the month, and then at the end of the month, I will play around and put them into a bigger pile, until eventually I had like 120 phrases. Once I had those 100 phrases, I said, okay, let's put them, let's organize them, let's figure out how we're gonna do this. So then, the 120 phrases got subdivided into 12 chapters of 8. So I had 96 phrases total. My first chapter is called The Beginning. My last chapter is called The End. I am a genius. The 10 chapters in the middle are called 1 through 10. I know, smart. But the biggest thing about it is, you are born and you die, and that cannot be changed. But the rules and the way that you learn across your life changes. So therefore, you can read those 10 chapters in any possible way that you want. And every single one of these phrases has a drawing, and the idea is the human, you, the spectator, can watch it, can see it, and then you read it, and then you become the third element that understands what that phrase is. During pandemic, I was like, well, I'm not gonna sit on my butt. Anyone who knows me knows I can't do that. So I started teaching an LLM. So I wrote an AI that will allow me to learn how to compose. And so I fed it for 2 years, all the information that I needed. And I created this beautiful LLM in which I could write 8 bars of music. Once I wrote those 8 bars of music, I will feed it into the AI. The AI will give me back 32 bars of music. I will then play with the AI to get those 32 bars of music to sound like something so a human could actually play. Then I will do the 32 bars of chord progression that came out of that melody. And that means I have a melody and a chord progression. And then I will tell my LLM to write me all the parts that I need for the guitar, the bass, the piano, and it will spit in 2 minutes all that music. And then I will give that music to my musicians. And my musicians will then learn it and play it. But that's too easy. So I decided to generate 24 different hand signs called conduction. This is something that comes from Butch Morris. And so what I do is I actually conduct the entire piece, but I'm changing the dynamics of the music. I'm deciding who plays, who goes down, who does a pizzicato, who completely shuts down, who goes 2 octaves up, who slows down, and the whole time I'm doing this in real time. Now, this makes it very, very cool, and you're always thinking in like a 3-dimensionality, 4-dimensionality, because you're always thinking about time. But the cool part about it is, in the middle of that, we decided to write our own sound engine within the Unreal Engine, because we thought it's not very good, so let's just write our own. And so now, every time something happens, you can see that something is happening in there. And why? Because I wanted to make sure that what the musicians were playing would be converted into data. And once that data came out, that data went into every single machine that was rendering. And that meant it's rendering the visuals that you're seeing on the screen, characterized by the yellow people, the physical reality. Then you have the red people, and the red people are in iPads seeing an augmented reality that is happening above. So you can see us performing, you can see the dancers, you can see the visuals, and then you can see things on your tablet. And then we have another layer where we have people that are on VR headsets. So they can hear what we're doing, and everything that we're doing is influencing the worlds in which they're in, but they can't see us. The next level of that was like, well, how do I make it so that other people can play? And so then we started playing really hard and allowing control to exist. So not only am I controlling the musicians to make things that are happening and how they're reacting to what's going on, but I also can tell my operators how to play with different knobs, and then I have knobs in my own conducting element. So now I'm changing also the elements that are happening and the attacks and the delays and everything around it. So all of a sudden, I am in total control of what's happening. But then I said, you know what? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Let's do something that when people watch this at home in a stream, there's nothing worse than watching something on the stream and you go, I want to be there. FOMO kicks in really, really badly. So I said, what if I made a stream with augmented reality? So now that you're at home, you get to see things that the people that are in the theater cannot see. So now it's cool to stay at home to watch this thing. Now you want to have this other variation of going, oh, I wonder what he's going to do next. So we started playing with this idea. And then I was like, well, if I'm more than this, why can't I do a setup in which I can talk to the cloud, and then the cloud can talk to clients, and then the clients can come down to your devices. So you could be in Hong Kong, playing in the world in real time that is being decided and changed by the decisions that I'm making on stage in the way that the musicians are playing, in the way that my dancers have their choreography. All of a sudden, the world's my oyster. All of a sudden, I can reach 10,000 people, 1 million people, because I am not constrained by the physicality of something. I can completely move around the world. This is one of those worlds that we created. The amount of work that went into getting this correct was insane. When we premiered this, we premiered it at the BFI. The BFI had the balls, is the only way I can put it, to put an XR piece in their main theater. We were the first XR piece to be shown in the main theater. We showed it 2 times. And we sold out both of those shows. We had 5,000 people watching the stream. And it was amazing. But then we got told that 90% of the people that came to the show were non-members. 65% of the people that came to the show had never stopped into the BFI. We had just generated an entire new audience that was now captive to come and do XR. And, you know, this is me with my, in this case, we decided to make it a more rocky, so I had a cello, a violin, a guitar, an electric guitar, keys, bass, a moog, and a drummer. Now, the only person who didn't have any music was my drummer. So I would look at him and go, ta, 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 ta. He was like, okay. And then give it 8, and then you hit on the 8. So finally, we performed. Now, one thing that I said from the beginning is I made this LLM. So I can train it to do whatever I want. Right after I performed this, I performed another piece at Sonar. And the curators at Sonar were very interested about what I was doing here. So they invited me to come and perform Unique at Sonar. But you go, if you know me, I never do the same thing twice. And I can teach this thing whatever I want, can't I? Yeah, well, can I teach it to do it? So then Sonar came, and we started thinking, so what do we do for Sonar? Well, I'm going to teach you how to play flamenco. And so all of a sudden, I had to reteach my entire engine how to play flamenco, how to use the feet, how to use a classical guitar. I had to teach it all the palos that exist. I had to teach it how to use the voice and change the way that the voice was being used, but also rearrange the entire music for it. And then I thought, you know what? I don't want to use just a dancer. I want to give the space that I've been given at Sonar to somebody else. And so I decided to go and call my friends from Flamenco Queer. And I had Flamenco Queer come in and perform with us. So all of a sudden, we're doing cantes that are meant to be male. We're having dancers that are meant to be female. And we changed the whole thing around it and reintroduced a brand new way of performing flamenco. You can actually listen to both of the versions, that both variations are now on all your bloody streaming platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did I not tell you? A wizard, isn't he? Do we have any questions for Tupac? We have time for one question.
What's next? I'm currently working on a new. Working on like 5 projects, but I have one that I'm hoping to debut in August that takes part on 2 rooms with 4 people and using a new version of an MPC. And then for Transmixer in May of 2025, I'm developing an entire immersive theater project for 30 people in real time using multiple realities.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned then. Thank you so much, Tupac. Gracias.